Well, hello, Amber. How was today?
It's good. I just took a nice big swallow of coffee, feeling very invigorated and caffeinated.
Awesome. I have something today that has been part of different conversations we've had, let's say over the last month or so,
Okay.
which is around the topic of, and I'm going to call it this, commitments. Because in projects, whether we're talking about team members or those that we're serving, we have deliverables.
Yeah.
And inside those deliverables, there's the negotiables and the non-negotiables. I think you know where I'm going with this
It
one.
depends on who. Yeah, it depends on the individual as to which is which.
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so the topic I want to come up with today is around that negotiation space.
Okay.
Because there are some things for which we have leeway. No problem.
Okay.
But if I'm thinking about critical path, there are some places where if we don't have X on X date, everything stops.
Yeah, the schedule's overrun and or we have to stop. Yeah.
That's right. And so I want to talk a little bit about how do we manage the personalities in that? Because, yeah, we the problem is usually not with the things in the world. I mean, things get delayed. We do have problems that
Yeah,
way.
and those are legitimate constraints that like every human on the project has to deal with. But it also is that constraint is the thing that we as a collaborative kind of team deal with. But that's not what you're talking about. You're
Well,
not talking about external constraints that create issues for all of us. You're talking about individuals who essentially are the constraint themselves.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Beautifully done. I'm not talking about the management because
Yeah,
we
yeah.
manage the things,
Right.
and sometimes we have to manage the things.
Right.
It's the leading of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. The leading of people inside the management of constraint can
Mhm.
often be difficult.
Often? I would say always
Okay.
difficult. I would say always difficult. But let's break it down. So, why are people that we work with in project environments, in any work environment, why are those people difficult? Why do we have, why do people see one commitment different than another? So for instance, in case of you and I, although we're not a good example because we're quite similarly aligned here, case in point, your definition of on time to an event is you're there early. You're usually there 30 minutes early. If it's someplace you're driving to, you've mapped out the course. You've kind of taken a nod to what's the traffic condition. You've navigated all of that, but you've left yourself enough time so no matter what the issues are, you're still going to arrive in that 30 to 15 minute before pocket, which to you is 15 minutes early is like slightly late because you're the guy who timing is, if you say you're going to be there, you're there. And you position your entire self to be there for the time. And that means you have to be there early because it's the only way you can be assured. I'm very much the same way. Although I have to say, full disclosure, I live on an island in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of North America. And there is such a thing as island time. And the, career that I had previous to moving to this island, and I've been here almost 21 years, was very like on time, be early. And then I moved here and island time went, ugh. So I actually pushed the boundaries more, probably even than you do. But you and I are not good examples because we are very much walk the talk people, right? But there's a lot of individuals that I work with that are not walk the talk people. In fact, they are tell everyone what they want to hear people. Save face people. And this is not a criticism that I'm saying. This is an observation. So please don't hear me say that if that's you, Amber is now saying you're bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you see the world differently and you see commitment differently than I do. And if we suppose neither of us are fully right, then can we have a conversation about okay, but how are then we both wrong? So for instance, in my case, like if I'm not early, I'm late, and then I will take that and I will be very self-critical. I will spin inside in my head, and I will be very like self-deprecating to myself. And it's a hard thing for me to navigate personally because I just feel like it speaks to my character that I showed up late.
Mhm.
I don't know that that's very helpful for me in my own self-awareness journey to land that much criticism of myself just for something like that. However, someone who is supposed to be there at noon and shows up at 12:30 and says, "Yeah, sorry I'm late," and then just goes on and acts as though everything's fine, like, they also may not be fully right, but their approach to that commitment of being there at noon is completely like, they see it completely differently, and that fascinates me, and I think that's what happens, is that when I was a novice professional, I was interested in 100% compliance for everyone on the team. And compliance to what? Compliance to like the rules. And who made the rules? Well, I don't know. Some of them were my own personal rules that I just expected every professional is supposed to know. But a lot of it's organizational rules or HR rules, human resource rules, depending on where you work. I mean, I would say, like, Marty, you and the organization you worked for, that's some serious rules. Like, would you say your commitment to showing up on time really stems from your military experience? Or has it been deeply enhanced because of your over 20 years with an organization where, like, I mean, what's the consequences of showing up late when you're like a soldier to
Yeah.
something? I don't know.
So to the first question, do I think it was the military or not the military?
Yeah.
I think it was. I had this long before the military.
Okay.
And for me, what does late mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does late mean to me? Late to me means failure of integrity or failure to hold your word.
Yes. It's exactly how I feel.
And for me, that's way bigger than any consequence of, oh, we started 10 minutes late or whatever.
Right.
If I give someone my word,
Yeah. It's your
that's
bond.
important.
It's your bond.
That's right.
Yeah.
But even what words mean now, and I think this is where you're going a little bit with
Yeah.
this, is um, for me, it's not just important that I have a word and that I do it.
Hmm.
It's important that I have a word, I do it, and I do it consistently.
Okay.
That there is a consistency because there are going to be days I'm going to miss something.
Yeah.
Like no matter how much planning you do, and you know I'm a planner.
I know.
There,
I
no
just
matter
told
how much
everyone you
planning,
were.
how much of a planner I am,
Yeah.
uh, something like if my granddaughter's in peril,
Yeah.
everything else, like there's no word I'm going to own
Yeah.
if my granddaughter's in peril.
I know.
Because
It's
we
most
have to know
important.
where it is. But consistently over time, my granddaughter won't be in peril over time.
Mhm.
And so the Martin that shows up over time is the
Mhm.
important Martin. I just think the military happened to value the thing that I already brought to the table.
Yeah.
I just think it was a happen to.
Right.
Um, and actually, I prefer precision to actually early. I do.
Yeah.
And in my own personal life, I'm very much about precision.
Well, you're better at precision now, though, because I think too, like in my observation, I mean, we've known each other for a long time now. Um, I think part of the being very well planned and prepared means that you are in that 30 minutes to 15 minutes early window. However, the more you practice that, like just generally showing up all the time, making sure you're always on time and being early enough that that's always the case, you then begin to be able to master those elements. And this is the other thing, and I love you. Maybe you could talk about this because you once said this, and I think it's relevant to this conversation. You were explaining to me the difference between sort of like, competency, mastery, and then the
Oh,
artistry.
yes.
And I think we were specifically talking about this as it related to martial arts, because that's also something as a part of your kind of life, I understand. But like, I think there's something like that at play as well that taps into why are you so interested in precision with your commitments now? Well, you've actually mastered a tremendous amount of showing up early, knowing how to do that, all the factors that go into it. You're not like flying blind. you actually have a lot of experience. And that then helps you almost probably tip into the artistry end, which is showing up on time, being someone of your word, following through with all your commitments, or very much almost all of them, because, life happens. It becomes an artistry for people like yourself and definitely for me, because we've just been doing it for a really long time.
Yeah, thank you. It
But
is a quote I heard, and I heard it from one of my martial arts instructors.
okay.
I don't remember who, and I don't remember who said it
So we
first.
can't give credit, but
Audience, if anyone knows where that quote comes from, please put it in the comments. I'd love to find out myself. But yeah, it was basically a concept it was around martial arts. We start to become skilled.
Yeah.
And then we'll build skill over time. Like
Right.
skill over time is just the part of any development.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, we've hit mastery. And I like to think of mastery as the unconscious, that I don't have to think about the thing I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just right there. And outside of martial arts, I actually experienced that more when I was younger in piano playing, that there's a difference between chopsticks and I can do it and like my hands are just moving and I don't know what part of my brain is doing that,
Right.
but it's just doing.
And that comes from that commitment, showing up every time, putting the practice in, building the skills. Yeah.
And then you hit a spot in that where you just know you've transcended.
Right.
And so if we're going to go back to music, I'm going to come back to Freddie Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm listening to Freddie Mercury, I know I'm not listening to a guy who's just mastered it.
Yeah,
Lots of people can master it.
Yeah.
There's so much artistry in what's going on that you've gone to the next level. And pick whatever.
Yeah.
Whomever is an artist in whatever space they're in. Simon Sinek is an artist in being able to do leadership off the cuff.
Okay.
I love watching him in interview more than I like watching him present, because in interview, he's so off the cuff.
Okay.
That's artistry. There's an artist in there who's just put in the time.
Okay.
What I think to this conversation around how we do this in teams,
right,
when we have constraints in these pieces, is I'm going to come back to self-assessment. That like you said, I've put in some time for these things so I can assess them. When I look at teams that don't necessarily gel or smooth in the areas around commitment,
right,
it usually comes from an incorrect assessment. And I'll put it this way, I'll call it the resume.
Okay.
There are things on your resume that you can pull off every time with mastery. And there's things on your resume that you're like, I can do that. I'm okay. I'm good.
Okay.
But it's about what we're presenting versus what we can do. And I come back to the word consistency.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about this. So why then? Because I mean what I say earlier, which is I'm not suggesting or proposing that my way, which is in the case of time and commitments, my way of showing up early and being on time always is right. And someone else who doesn't value that same commitment makes it wrong. I think for me, I used to think that way. I used to think it's black and white. If you're supposed to be there at noon and you're not at noon, you're in the wrong. Now what I understand is there's actually a lot of complexity going on there. And it has a lot to do with how, as humans, we view the world. And I think your resume example is a great one, because it's also about, on paper, humans look quite similar. If you kind of laid out gifts and skills and or, like you were saying, mastery or even artistry, if you lay all that out on a resume, it feels tangible. It feels like, oh, this person is going to fit here, that's going to work there. And from an HR standpoint, I think we see a lot of this even being developed. We see rubrics in a hiring environment that are created to see what's on the page, what can be said of a human, and then to basically put the puzzle together based on what that all looks like. And then there's reality. Then there's the reality of, okay, we have 12 people on our team. And on paper, all 12 of these people look like we are going to fill in all the gaps and it's going to be the perfect synergy. And then we book our first meeting to start at noon. And out of the 12 people that are dedicated and committed, all 12 show up to that noon time frame for that meeting very differently.
Mhm.
And the paper, the resume, the skills that they have and that they possess, those don't interact the same way as they look like they're going
Yeah.
to on paper. And this is why I really believe taking the humanity out of our professional organizational work environments, which we've tried to do. This is where the rub is, because we think, based on metrics, that what is on paper will be the expectation and the assumption for how it's going to work, and people aren't like that. And it's really interesting. Like, there's a lot of times, even I don't know if you've had this experience, where I will meet a couple, like a twosome, and they will be obviously in love or committed to each other, and I will look at them and go, "How does this work?" Because what I know of each of them, it makes no sense. Like, on paper, it makes no sense. And yet, what happens often in those moments when I'm observing a couple that are, dedicated, committed, possibly even in love, because sometimes it's not a loving relationship, it's just a deep seated commitment to one another. When I look at it, I'm like, how does that work? It doesn't make any sense. And this is the piece of humanity that I think is so interesting. It won't necessarily make sense, because there is something else going on between humans. There is something else going on in how each individual perceives commitments to one another, to the work, to the way they're going to deliver the work. Like you were saying on the resume, there's stuff that you're a master of on your resume. And then there's the stuff that you're like, yeah, I mean, I could do it if I had to. And depending on the role you get hired into, that may be the biggest ask of you. And part of you is like, yeah, I just want the role. Just get me in the door. And then you find out, oh, yeah, like I can do it, but it's not life giving to me. Or I don't have as much skill there as I really do need for the job. And then there's the like, well, how can I pretend? How can I tell my teammates that I've got that under control, even though I don't, so that I will save face? And I see this happen all the time. And part of it is too, because if we are vulnerable about the things that we are not good at, it's an absolute risk in a lot of work environments, because with that vulnerability comes the opportunity for us to be taken advantage of, or for us to lose the team position that we've obtained. And so there's so much going on there that my response at this stage of my career to all of these types of questions is, this is why human-centered leadership is so necessary. And that means the individuals that are in leadership roles have to respect their own humanity, understand their humanity, and then actually use that filter to put together teams. So it's not resume based. And if you hire 12 people and you're given those 12 people by HR and they're the ones you got to make work, the first thing I do as a PM, if I have the ability, is I go into that 12-person meeting once we've all gathered. And by now it's usually about 12:15, 12:20 by the time we're all there. And I'm like, awesome, so great to be here. Let's talk to each other. Let's get to know each other. Let's talk about what fires you up. Let's talk about what you love to do. Let's build a cohesive team out of honest, authentic conversations with people. Problem, of course, is that not everybody feels safe enough to have that conversation. And this is the rub also. So this is also where someone like me, who used to go, well, if you're late, you're bad. It doesn't, it's like, that is such a simplistic view to us and them, both of us. It's like a polarizing move to just decide that, well, they did that wrong. Is there an expectation you have to show up on time? Yes, of course there is. But also, what's going on when you don't? What is that factor?
Mhm.
How is it that you see the world? Because, I've had a few colleagues that show up late chronically. And I remember in one case, finally being exacerbated by that, having a conscious conversation, being curious, and discovering that the reason they're always late is because they are so stressed about being prepared for the meeting. They are researching. They are collecting data. They are working so hard that in the last 10 to 15 minutes, they are beyond taxed with work. And it's all about being conscientious when they show up to the meeting. And you know what? To be honest with you, Martin, that same meeting, I haven't even prepared anything. I'm just going and being on time because that makes me right.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, who's right here? The person who's so dedicated, so conscientious that their lateness is because they care so much and they want to do a great job, over me, who's like, yeah, I didn't even read the notes and I'm there on time.
Yeah.
Which, the subjectivity of that is like, that's the challenge. We're humans. And understanding where we're all coming from is a huge part of how to work on teams successfully.
I love where you're going, and my brain automatically has a spot on this one.
A what?
A spot on this one.
Oh, a spot. Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
the spot that I'm going to
said
hold.
a spell. I was
A
like,
spell?
whoa, what's a spell?
Yes.
Okay.
Discoveryoso.
What do you want? Yeah.
Well, no, because again, let's come back to that resume.
Yeah.
So let's come back to that resume. And why I want to come back to that resume is in my head, the spot is measurement. We have a measuring way of doing it. We like measuring what we can see and what we can tell.
Yeah.
So again, let's look at AI. If I said, AI, tell me who's a good musician and get me 12 great musicians.
Right.
I might get 12 incredible musicians who can't work together at all.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Because it's only looking for skills based.
Could be.
And as you know, I'm a big fan of Rich Davini and the attributes. And if I said, again, go through their resumes and find cunning, go through their resumes and find courage, go through their resumes and find grit. These are the things we want. And you can measure these.
You can, but those are not things that we traditionally measure.
That's right.
And yet those are the things that make the difference when the project goes south.
Precisely.
Yeah.
How we've set up the game is incorrect for the thing we actually want.
Yeah.
Because we're too busy measuring yesterday's standards.
Correct.
To actually figure out. Yeah. And again, plug for Rich. He's got an amazing system for figuring out what you really want on your team. And he was part of Navy SEAL selection. So we're talking competency matters. Skills matter.
Right.
But he used to say all the time, I can teach you skills. Oh, you don't know how to swim? Yeah, I can teach you that. You don't know how to shoot? I can teach you that. No problem. Yeah. Those are skills. That's what we measure. We're measuring all these skills. He's like, I want to know when everything's crazy, are you going to be the person I can count on?
Yeah.
And that's really kind of what we're talking about here in project. How do we assess those attributes for success? Because like you just said, sometimes timing means everything and we want to have that. Yeah. And I grew up with a grandfather that said, if your shirt's untucked, you are a bum.
Yeah.
That was a measurement. And he went to the grave with that measurement. And as I sit here with an untucked shirt.
I was just going to say, your shirt isn't tucked in. So
I still got a collared shirt. I still look professional. I'm still good.
Very disappointed.
But he would be disgrazia with an untucked shirt because we're measuring something that has changed in the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happened. We're relying more and more on tools like AI.
Right.
If I said AI, and I'm sure if a resume goes out today, AI has vetted it long before humans put eyes on it.
Yes.
But what we've told AI to look for is the things AI is good at looking for, which is the same thing HR is good at looking for. Yeah. I don't know that HR is good at looking for attributes, and I don't know that AI is good for looking for attributes. And I don't know how, even if you looked at my resume, I would describe courage. Cunning is one of my favorites. I love cunning. Cunning, and you know this. Cunning is three simple things. Is there a rule? What happens if I break it? And is it real or perceived?
Well, and I think, so I think cunning may be the answer to some individuals also who show up late to meetings. In those, if we're talking about this team of 12, who keeps showing up late to meetings, cunning often is a part of that, which is, who cares if I'm late? There's no consequence. And I have other things that are really important for me to do. And so cunning is also this sort of thing that an individual often will play. It's funny how some of us are based on, I think, obviously our predisposition, but also our life experience to be character driven on commitments to something like time. And others consider it a lack of character to care about something that's so trivial, which is to show up on time. And so both are right
Mhm.
in their own context. I think, and I just want to kind of push into what you were talking about, particularly even with technology. And that is, how are we as professionals today in 2026, how are we going to address this?
Mhm.
Because what I see from my vantage point is that humanity and human-centered leadership is going to be the only aspect that will navigate us through what's coming. This tsunami of technology and this complete integration where our species and essentially an engineered species of technology are going to actually merge. How we merge and how we work together, us as humans losing our humanity, be trying to become or be like technology, that is not going to be successful because the technology is better than us. It's just simply better than us. We built something that is better than we are in our capabilities, particularly when it comes to massive amounts of information and knowledge. Knowledge is no longer a commodity because it's going to be free flowing and it's going to be very much critically understood by technology. It already is in ways that our brains can't synthesize. That shouldn't necessarily be a frightening thought, as long as what we hold on to is what makes us distinct as a species from the technology that we have built. And I think this is where that human-centered piece comes, which is, I got into a fairly heated argument recently about right and wrong. And I used to think everything had a right and a wrong. And I don't think that way anymore. And when I said that, this other person just was like horrified. And they just were like, well, that's wrong. And I was like, okay. I'm just aware that I think also that human-centered beliefs and human-centered analysis and what does it mean to be human and how can we have unconditional positive regard for each other means we have to start to think differently about the polarization. And of course, we see this right now in 2026, massive polarization in humans across the globe. But what is it getting us? More conflict, more tension, more complexity. How do we reduce all of that? I think it has to be in not being as polarized. It has to be in what do we have in common? If we're not looking at each other's resumes and we're actually showing up and being present with one another authentically, then we have the opportunity to look at how do we collaboratively fit together? How can our gifts and skills, our mastery, our artistry, how can that actually create better systems for us to thrive? I don't presume to know how, but I do think it is going to be in that human-centered. And the idea of you are lacking in character because you show up late, that is going to have to go by the wayside. Does it mean that it's wrong to show up on time? No, but the idea that we just we just sort of disqualify someone completely because they haven't hit one metric, I it's it feels immature
Yeah.
at this stage of my career to do that. And boy, I would have not said that probably even 5 years ago in my journey. So, for me, so if you're listening to this also and this is making you angry, I get it. If I was listening to this 5 years ago, I'd have been angered at myself too. But this is where I am today in 2026.
And Amber, I want to say thank you today. Thank you, because human-centric is exactly where we need to be in this conversation.
Yeah.
As we come to a close on this one, I do want to say thank you to our listeners, because even here in making our podcast, we are attempting to demonstrate our skill. We are
Not our
learning.
mastery. Let's be
We're learning
clear.
our mastery, but we are open to the humanity of artistry.
Thanks, Martin.
Thanks so much.